So welcome back, everybody. We are beginning today a brand new chapter, Perek Lamed Zayin, which is based on the continuation of the, as we had the ability to finish chapter 36 after a few lessons, this is a continuation of the message of 36, which 36 being a very fundamental chapter, as we explained in the last few weeks. And Rabbi explains why the emphasis on this very physical world, the Torah mitzvahs down here in this physical world, the purpose of creation, again all predicated on that Medrash Tanchuma, that famous Medrash Tanchuma, Parshas Nosei, Nisava Kodesh Baruch Hu Lislei Dira B'Tachteinim. Kodesh Baruch Hu wanted precisely a dwelling place in this very physical world. Hence, every other area, even in the higher Elam Esaliyanim, is a Yerida, is a descent for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, for his chayfetz, his ratzon, his inner desire, is precisely here, in this Elam Azatachten, Shem Tachten Lamate Men, in this very lowly world. This is the lowest. Again, when Eibishter wanted a dira, a dwelling place, B'Tachteinim, so B'Tachteinim, once you can go lower, so then it's not the original world, is not yet Tachtein, the ultimate Tachtein. But when we say HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted a dira, a dwelling place in Tachteinim, so we say the inferior or the lower world. So the place which would fulfill that chayfetz, that desire of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is this very physical world. Shein tachten l'matei mena, there's nothing lower. And we explained, when we say lower, higher, tachtin, elyon, obviously it's in the context of revelation. And this world being a tachtin is a world not only doesn't reveal on its own godliness, quite on the contrary, it is a world which does anything else but reveal its own reality, for that matter. There is only Hashem Echad, but it conceals, it obscures it, it eclipses the Hashem Echad. This is the mere makeup of Eilam, as the Rabbi explained, and this is where HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to do with Tachteinim, and again, this is where he gave the Torah, and this is what the Kayach of the Torah is. We spoke about the duality of Torah, the dual Kayach of Torah, or the dual process. One Torah would cause a bittul, a complete self-nullification, into Eilam is for its Hashem Echad, and Hashem Lekecha, it's the core essence of Hashem. Conversely, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, within Torah itself, there's the Tal Torah, the do of Torah, which allows existence to continue to exist. And more so, we pointed out that Mashiach will come, the existence will not be contradicted, and Hashem Lekecha need not to expire, for it will be a perfect vessel, perfect keli, to the Anechi Hashem Lekecha, to the grand revelation. Again, we're saying a few of the tidbits of the previous chapter, which we could always find, and as this Perek Lamed Zayin, the 37th chapter, is a continuation to that message, so we feel it appropriate to just point out a few points. But again, in elaboration and in detail, one could always look back at the Tanya, the Tanya in the link box here, Tanya, and to put in Tanya, and or in the Tanya online website, which is again hosted by the same honorable hosts. Yet the website is there precisely for this class. You could easily access previous classes, as we've mentioned time and again. And namely, one could follow with the text. It's up usually a few hours after it's up on the this website. And again, namely the previous classes, one could easily follow and pick up to have a bit better understanding on the overall learning over here. Perek Lamed Zayin, the 37th chapter, will go on without any further ado. Perek Lamed Zayin. V'hinei tachlis hashleimus hazeh shel yimei Mashiach utchias hamesim, the ultimate completion of the days of Mashiach, and tchias hamesim, which means the complete, this climactic state of Yimei Mashiach tchias hamesim, in the context of the very bigger picture, why we're here, and our overall service to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in these 3,300 years, from the time when Hashem gave the Torah, which is Gili Ein Sof Baruch Hu Beilam Hazagashmi, which is, again, as we mentioned in the previous chapter, is expressed by the maximum revelation, by the revelation of the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in this very physical world, which this was the purpose. The purpose was Nis'ava HaKadosh Baruch Hu, like we say, Leizdira B'Tachteinim, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted a dwelling place in this physical world, that He Himself, the way He is for Himself, by Himself, should be completely exposed in this very physical world. It means the revelation of the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that's why I say the Abishter for Himself, by Himself, before He becomes before He sets Himself in the tone of being a creator, which is again a concealment, a confinement on the Ein Sof, who becomes a BAYT, and he gets involved in Eilamis. Eilamis, the highest level of Eilamis, did not reflect Ein Sof, because it's an Eilam. Eilam is already a creation, a description. Eilam Elashon Helen V'Hester, it conceals, it covers up of the Ein Sof, despite the world being a world which reveals the godly reality, like Gan Eden, but still it's an Eilam. Gan Eden, these descriptions, the Hashem is beyond description. When we say HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted a Dira Lois Baruch, meaning the essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the way He's transcendent of being a creator, transcendent of creating Eilamis, or transcendent certainly of the Eilamis itself, may be the highest level of any Eilam, any world, even a world which is there to reveal Elokus godliness. But as we know, for example, we mentioned this a few times, for example, even Gan Eden, what does it say? The Talmud tells us, Neshamis Yeshvi V'Nenin Miziv HaShechina. It's only the Ziv, it's only the ray of the Shechina, it's not the core essence of the Shechina, because the core essence of the Shechina is beyond Eilam. And this is when we say Gili Ein Sof Baruch Hu, meaning to say it's the Eibishter Hashem, the way He's for Himself, by Himself, transcendent of being a creator, of descending into being involved, kaviyachol, so to say. We always say kaviyachol, because even if just involved, He always remains transcendent. But the level of HaKadosh Baruch Hu creates, it's not the core essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and it's not the Ein Sof Baruch. It's not the revelation of the Ein Sof, of the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's the way the Eibishter conceals Himself in order to create. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted Dira Lois Baruch, that this physical world should contain, it should reveal, should bring about the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's the Loi, the essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the revelation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu Himself, the Ein Sof Himself. And again, this is the Avodah, this is the service of the Yid doing in this Dira B'Tachteinim, in other words, implementing this grand master plan of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to make this world a dwelling place for Him. And when does it come to fruition? Tachlis HaShleimus, when does it come to completion? When does it come to fruition? As we said in the previous chapter, by which is again then is going to be the revelation of this which we invested for 3,300 years, which means every mitzvah Yid does, as he's going to say, this is not something which comes like Jack out of the box suddenly at a certain point. There's the Gilui and Sof Baruch Hu, the revelation of the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is what we toiled throughout the 3,300 years. Again, we're going to go on explaining, but namely, as everything is ultimately, every mitzvah, every Torah, what a person learns, it's about revealing it's about bringing about the Ein Sof Baruch Hu to this world, to fulfill that master plan of Nisav HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and a covet he desired to have a dira, a dwelling place in this very physical world, means to say he wanted to be revealed, exposed, as he is for himself, by himself, the highest levels, the core essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Nenechi Hashem Elikecha, should be connected and connected to and revealed within this physical world. But when does it come to Gilui? In other words, it's when does it come to full state of fruition, of completion? By Beis Mashiach, at Ches HaMesim, like we learned in the previous chapter, which is days of Mashiach and the days of the resurrection of the dead, which then Gilui and Sof Baruch Hu, you can have the revelation of the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu Beilam Hazeh Gashmi in this very physical world. So we know that this is the message. This is the message, and what is the message over here? That it's not something which comes, like we just said, out of the box, out of nowhere, that suddenly HaKadosh Baruch Hu decides, push a button now, it's the Gilui and Sof, the revelation of His infinite light. But no, this is a process which began from the very beginning, perhaps even of creation, and we have Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, and more so by Matan Torah, when again HaKadosh Baruch Hu began this exposure of the Anechi Hashem Lekecha, the Anechi, and through these 300 years, all the mitzvahs which he did, and we continue to do it, learning that Teda, the learning Teda, which Yidden can learn and continue to learn. As we mentioned, every mitzvah is the Anechi Hashem Lekecha, every Yidden Teda is the Anechi Hashem Lekecha. The only thing is, throughout the time of Galus, it was concealed. It was like someone is accumulating, for example, golden coins. So these golden coins are put in a chest, are remain in a chest, and he accumulates and he accumulates and he accumulates, and he puts this in it as kind of in this locked up box. But the fact that he doesn't see it, and perhaps it's a savings account, he doesn't see it and he cannot benefit, doesn't mean, as of yet, does it mean that it's not there for him or her? It's there, because this is the same golden coin that you'll eventually benefit from. It's not like a different mitzias later comes out golden coins. Until now it's just a piece of wood, it's the box. In the box there's golden coins, and jewelry and diamonds, whatever you accumulate. It's just you cannot benefit it, you cannot use it to a certain point. But later when you could use it, it's not just suddenly golden coins came out of nowhere. This is what you accumulated over the years. Because as we said, every inyan in Torah is a Anechi Hashem Lekecha. Every mitzvah is a Anechi Hashem Lekecha. And that's what basically he's saying. It's all totally, it's all dependent in our doings, in our service, calls man meshach galus, throughout the entire span of galus, of exile. Ki hageirim schar hamitzvah. What causes the reward of the mitzvah? Hi mitzvah atzma. It's the mitzvah ba'atzma itself. It's the mitzvah itself. Because when one does a mitzvah, mamshech ha'ora, mamshech ha'adam gilir in sabaruch mimayla mata, the person draws the revelation of the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu mimayla, from above lamato, down here below in this world, lishlapish begashmi selam hazard, to invest in this very physical order, bedavar, in something shoytchilos talis tachs mimshelas klipas nega, something which was under the dominance of klipas nega, mikabel chayus mimeno, and receives its chayus, its energy from klipas nega, as we're going to again explain this so many times, but in this context, just in a moment, we're going to explain sheheim kol dvar magashmi mumutorim shenasem emitzvah ma'isi, which this is all the items which are tehirim, which means are pure, that you can't do a mitzvah with them. Umutar, they're permissible, which again the mitzvah ma'isi is done with them, is implemented, is actualized, is realized through these items. Again, this is where the mitzvah ma'asis, which HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells us that this is a mitzvah which you ought to perform, is done with a very physical item which was till this moment where the mitzvah was performed with it. It's receiving its energy from klipas nega. As an example, again, klafat tefillin, the parchment of tefillin, mezuzah, the parchment of mezuzah, sefer Torah, the parchment of a sefer Torah. What was a musha, what was conducive for the godly work, literally translated as this which is pure and permissible in your mouth. This is again the lashon of the Talmud, that this which is permissible you can go ahead and do the mitzvah with. So in essence, just to not to put too much time in explaining this very phrase, because again, we had this quite a few times, that mitzvahs are done with the physical, via the physical. So what is transpiring over here? You take something, for example, parchment, which you're going to write a sefer Torah, or you're going to write a pair of tefillin, or you're going to write a mezuzah on this parchment, as an example. The parchment itself, up to the moment that you use it for a mitzvah, where is it receiving its chayas? Where is it receiving its energy? It's receiving its energy from klipas nega. Now, if you could look back, and it's always, again, I encourage those who want to have that a little bit more in detail clarity on these terms, klipas nega and shalosh klipas etmeis, they could turn back to the earlier chapters, towards the very beginning, which is chapter 6, chapter 7, and 8 as an example. In other places, but namely those chapters, which the Alter Rebbe is basically saying that there, and explains that mitzvahs are we know mitzvahs are done with the physical. That the significant majority of mitzvahs are not the one removes himself from the physical world. Quite on the contrary, takes the physical. Quite on the contrary, takes the physical world and it transforms the physical world and makes it a holy place. He elevates the physical to the divine. What does that mean? Because till now, and even there's borders. There are borders, meaning to say there's certain items that the Kodesh Baruch Hu says don't go there. Don't try to elevate it, because not only you won't elevate it, it'll bring you down, together with your Torah, together with your mitzvahs. And this is what we explain the two levels of Klippas Nega and Shalosh Klippas Atmeis. Klippas Nega is that mutual Klippa, that neutral Klippa. It means to say, take for example, a apple. An apple, it's a kosher apple, you could make a bracha on the apple, you could elevate the apple via making a bracha, via eating it, l'shem shamayim, for a godly purpose and a godly sake, and you follow through with the godly purpose and its godly sake. For example, I want to learn Torah and I'm hungry, so and it's difficult for me to understand, to focus, to perceive the content of my learning, so I need something, so I'm going to eat an apple, which is going to soothe my hunger, and I'll be able to focus, and I'll be able to learn, and I'll be able to appreciate this which I'm learning, and hence fulfill the mitzvah of Talmud Torah. So what's happening is not only the learning is it becomes the mitzvah, but even the apple at that moment is elevated from the state of Klippas Nega, which again, Klippas Nega is a term of neutral Klippa. Neutral means to say that it's a kind of mediocre, it's just a klipa, till this moment that I made the bracha on the apple and I ate it l'shem shamayim for a godly sake. The apple was receiving energy from somewhere. You can't say the apple is a holy object. It's not a holy object. It's not like a pair of tefillin. With pair of tefillin became a davar kodesh, a chefza shel kedusha, became a item of kedusha. That's why tefillin falls on the floor. There's halachas you have to fast, especially a sefer Torah. It's just a piece of parchment, but it's not a piece of parchment anymore. Now it became a chefza, meaning to say became a divine item. And the tefillin itself is kaddish. An apple, you can't say so. So where is it receiving its energy from? And we know nothing can exist without a force of energy which is mahava, machayim, mekayim at the moment, which is giving you life and existence at the very moment. And so where is it receiving its energy from? So we explained and we gave a few examples. Again, it's always worthwhile to go through those chapters. We gave that example of that conveyor belt, one conveyor belt to the other. But again, I'm not going to go into this in detail right now, because there we clarified it, we contrasted the Shalosh Klippas Atmeis, which we're going to repeat also in brief, but it's worth to look there in those chapters to find that we try to use some interesting examples which would bring clarity to this whole idea of Klippas Nega, Shalosh Klippas Atmeis, and again, conversely Kedusha. So you have the three levels. You have drive, neutral, and reverse. Drive is that you're moving ahead. Neutral is something that it can go either way. When you're on neutral, it's a state that you can go either way. Similarly, the apple, if you're going to eat it, we make a bracha and eat it l'shem shamayim for a godly sake, for a godly purpose. You're going to follow through with a godly purpose, means that you're going to learn Torah with the energy of that apple, or you're going to do a mitzvah with the energy of that apple. So the apple itself becomes ka'ila, ka'karb, like the lashon of the Alter Rebbe, becomes like a sacrifice, which was also a physical animal, but it became a sacrifice like Kodesh Baruch Hu once it went onto the mizbeach. Before that, it was just an animal. And again, in the context of just, say it was an animal in the barn. It was a good thing, but it wasn't bad. But it wasn't particularly. It didn't have any holiness to it. You put it on the mizbeach, it becomes holy. It becomes completely elevated to God, to the Ein Sof. Similarly, when you eat an apple, in that matter, when you eat it with a bracha and you eat it l'shem shamayim, the apple right now is elevated. Elevated from what? Until this moment, it was receiving its energy from that neutral klipa. The klipa is not so intense. Again, the difference when we say neutral klipa as opposed to shalosh klippas atmeis, we're going to mention again, repeat in a moment. There's really in the past about the shalosh klippas atmeis, but in neutral means say the tumah, the klipa, the impurity is not so intense, hence it can be elevated. Conversely, it could be dropped into a lower level. For example, if I eat it, even if I do make a bracha for that matter, but I eat it for a purpose just to gain strength, and I use that strength to speak a good piece of lashon hara, which I was too weak to get involved in that conversation. and I ate an apple just to put myself together, and then I joined the conversation of Lashon Hara. So the apple itself not left that medium level of klipa and is plunged into the nadir level of klipa, where the klipa, meaning say the intensity of the impurity, the level where the impurity is very intense and has no ability to be elevated. That's why, which is where I brought down the apple. Because I utilized the apple for something which HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, do not speak Lashon Hara, as an example. And that's where the world of Shalosh Klipsat Meis is. There's certain things of Shalosh Klipsat Meis are not dependent in my choice. Things which are intrinsically impure, for example, a non-kosher piece of meat. I'm very hungry and I want to learn a piece of Gemara, and I'm going to eat something which is not kosher, not adequately kosher. Well, let's speak about the extremes. Something's not kosher piece of meat. Let's say, gives me chayis, he make a big bracha, the kavanah, with the intention, L'shem Shamayim, Baruch, To'ah Hashem. And I'm going to consume it, and I'm going to gain physical strength, and I'm going to learn the Gemara. You're brought down into the abyss of impurity. You and your Teda and your Gemara, everything is brought down to a place in an area where Hashem says, "Do not go, do not enter." I told you in the Teda, don't enter that territory, do not enter that domain. Don't be a chacham, and try to take something which I say is intrinsically impure, has no elevation, has no aliyah. Again, there's a notion of tshuva and loss of love. But in regular Avodas Hashem, it has no aliyah. There's no way to elevate it. I said in the Teda, do not eat it. Do not engage with that. That's Shalosh Klipsat Meis. There's the intensity of the impurity, or the impurity is intrinsic with this item itself, and therefore it has no way to be elevated. But this as well, when you're dealing, even dealing with something, which again, that's the difference with Shalosh Klipsat Meis or klipa sneiga. And that's what he says. What is permissible to do a mitzvah is only something which is pure and permissible in your mouth, meaning to say something which Teda says that it comes from klipa sneiga, not chas v'shalom from Shalosh Klipsat Meis. There's no way to elevate it, because I said do not, and I say do not. There's no way that it can be elevated. So, and just to point out again, we're dealing with klipas nega, the fact that it's neutral doesn't have that intensity of the impurity in this, for example, apple as we gave, but yet it could still go both ways. It's still a neutral ground that I could eat it with a bracha and a Shem Shamayim for a godly sake and follow through with the godly sake. So it becomes like an elik, a carbon. It comes completely to the other extreme, which is again kedusha, holiness, divinity, sanctity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's consumed. It becomes part of the kedusha shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the divinity, the sanctity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Conversely, if I eat it not l'shem shamayim, as we gave the example of Lashon Hara, it gives me the strength and I follow through with Lashon Hara. I brought it down. I even exchange where it's receiving its apples, receiving its energy, not from klipas nega, that neutral state, but from shalosh klipsat meis, the lower level of klipa, which has no aliyah, has no way to be elevated. And that's what I deliberately did. Took something which could have been elevated and I brought it down. But again, these are the arichas shabaz, and the elaboration of this is more, again, explained than in those original chapters. But basically here he's getting at, he says, this is what's transpiring. Again, when we're doing every single mitzvah, that I'm taking something which was neutral until this very moment was receiving its chayis, not from kedusha, not from shalosh klipsat meis. It's still klipas nega, where the tumah is not intense, hence it can be elevated, but still it was receiving its energy not from a place of kedusha. And I took it and I did a mitzvah with it. As he gives the example of klaf, a parchment of tefillin or mezuzah sefer Torah, that till this moment it was a piece of parchment. It was nothing holy. There's nothing holy about a piece of parchment. It comes from the skin of the animal. Nothing holy about it. Quite on the contrary, it's receiving klipa from klipas nega. Even that neutral level of klipa, it's still klipa. Still a sense of a force of impurity. That's what it's receiving its life and existence. That's why it's existing. That's why it's here. So it's constantly receiving till the moment I'm doing it, till the moment I take it. In order to do a mitzvah with it, it's receiving its energy from klipas nega. Then I take it and I do a mitzvah with it, so I'm elevating this elam, this part of the elam, this part of the world, which again in this example, and it crosses the entire Torah, mitzvahs, trumas, maisis, everything. But he gives an example, the parchment which comes from the skin of the animal, which is a part and parcel of an elam haza. This is a classic case of elam haza. It's an animal. It's the skin of an animal. it becomes a piece of parchment, but I take it and I write a sefer Torah with it, so I'm elevating it, that it ceases to exist, it ceases to receive its energy from Klipas Nega. Right now it's connected to the Anechi Hashem Lekecha, it's connected to the Ein Sof, to the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hence, I fulfilled this nis'ave, I fulfilled this taiva, this desire of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to have a dira, lo yizbarach, a dwelling place in this very physical world. I fulfilled this taiva of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, meaning to say I connected the Ein Sof with Eilam Hazat Tachtein, in this physical world. The klaf, the parchment is physical. It's not part of Gan Eden. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted a dira b'tachteinim, in this very lowly physical world, not a spiritual world. So when I take the klaf and I take the parchment and I write it, Sefer Torah, it becomes a mezuzah now, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Ein Sof, because the mitzvah is right on your doorposts, and the doorposts of your home and your gates, meaning to say, which again, this is the mitzvah mezuzah. It's a mitzvah. This is where HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself, his core essence, is speaking. Hence the core essence of the mitzvah mezuzah is the energy of the Anechi Hashem Lekecha, the core essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that is connecting with this physical parchment. So if I had a mezuzah 3,000 years ago, if a Yid had a mezuzah 3,000 years ago on his door, it wasn't yet the revelation of the Ein Sof, it wasn't yet the fulfillment or the connection of the Ein Sof, the infinite light of God with this physical world. Yes, it was. Equally as done today, equally as it will be with Mesa Mashiach. Because like we said, it's the accumulation of these gold coins. Every gold coin remains a gold coin, despite I cannot have any use of it yet. It's going into this chest, it's going into this box. But it's the same gold coin. And in other words, when I do this mitzvah, it all happened, everything clicked at the time that I did the mitzvah. Yet when Mashiach will come, it'll be the revelation, it'll be the fruition, coming to fruition, and everything which we have done in the last 3,300 years. So it's not just like it's a kind of decision of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Everything is a decision of HaKadosh Baruch Hu when this revelation will happen, but it's just not something just comes out of nowhere. This was dependent, the revelation of the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu was dependent on all the Rabbi throughout the 3,300 years from Matan Torah. That we take something which is till now associated with Klipas Nega, with this neutral Klipa, and we elevate it, and we make do a mitzvah, but again, the mitzvah has to be done precisely from something which is a davar mutar, not chas v'sholom a davar asur. Like he says over here, for example, esrig, she'eni arla, esrig is a mitzvah. Interesting, looking forward for Sukkot now. Towards Sukkot, esrig is the same thing. It's a fruit. It's just a fruit. And a fruit it's not chas v'sholom impure. Well, it's not. It's something which is the fruit on the tree, which is receiving its energy from klipas nega, that medium type of klipa, where the klipa, where the impurity is not as intense. Hence, this is where HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, take it and elevate it and bring it to the domain of kedusha. That's what we do. We take something from Eilam, from the physical world, which till now is receiving from klipas nega, and we do a mitzvah with it, so now becomes an esrig, which we make a bracha on it, so it's no more a fruit which is receiving its energy from klipas nega, but it's right now connected to that Anechi Hashem Lekech. But it has to be again mutarim tahirim mutarim b'ficha, this which is pure and permissible to you. For example, she'eni arla, I can't take an esrog, which is arla. Arla is the first 3 years, as we know. The first 3 years, namely in Eretz Yisrael, is namely this mitzvah. So if I take them, and in the first 3 years, you're not allowed benefiting from the tree. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says that the only time you could benefit from any tree is after 3 years, only after 3 years. In the time of Eretz Yisrael, the 4th year they had was Neter Ravai. Again, these are the halachas, which you have to bring it to the Beis HaMikdash, and so on and so forth. And the Chiyach Shana Chamishis was normal usage, normal benefit. But let's talk about the first 3 years, which Teda says it's Orlo. What does it mean it's Orlo? It means that very fruit is receiving its energy. Those first 3 years, not from Klipas Nega, but from Shalosh Klipas Atmeis, from the lower level of Klipa, like we said before, similar to a non-kosher piece of meat, which there's no way that I can elevate it. There's no way I can do a mitzvah with it. Chas v'shalom to go there even. And similarly, to take an esrog, and look, it looks like the same esrog. First 3 years, 5th year, what's the big deal? What's the difference? It looks the same esrog. And this very tree is going to produce an esrog in a year or two from now, which I'm going to be able to do a mitzvah. So what's the difference? No, there is a difference right now, because Baruch says it's anchored. First 3 years, it's Arla. And when Baruch says it's an Aveda, it's not just like Ini Mo, and just says, 3 years, 2 years, 5 years, and so on. No, that's right now, because the energy which is receiving now is intrinsically connected to the world of Shalosh Klipas Atmeis, this lower, again, level of Tumah, which has no aliyah, has no way of being elevated, so we can't make a bracha with that esrog, Baruch Atah Hashem. Nothing is happening. Because the esrog is asur, that's the lashon of asur. If you remember, I'll explain so beautifully. When we say something asur, the literal meaning asur means to say it's tied down. Matir surim. Surim, it's incarcerated. It's bishal shalois shal barzel, with metal chains that's connected in a way that it cannot be alleviated. The energy cannot be alleviated because it's connected into, it's incarcerated and well anchored in the world of shalosh klipas atmeis, and again the world of impurity has no way to be elevated. Doesn't matter how much I'm going to shackle it, I'm going to make the bracha. It's an esrig, which is arla. The first 3 years, because Baruch says the esrog is receiving its energy similar to the non-kosher piece of meat. I can't put my 2 cents in and says, well, it looks the same. Similar to I can't put my 2 cents and say, well, the meat is, in the end of the day, I'm feeling better after I ate this non-kosher piece of meat, and I'm learning Torah and I'm doing mitzvah. With that energy, you're doing nothing. On the contrary, you bring yourself with the mitzvah, with the Torah, you're learning into the world of this Shalosh Klipas Atmeis, where this meat is associated with prior to your eating, similar to the esrog. If it's arla, you can't do a mitzvah with it. So this is, but yet, again, what he is getting at, he says she'enei gezel. Somebody gives charity. The charity has to be from money which is not stolen money. Even though tzedakah, again, when you give tzedakah, you elevate this which you give tzedakah with, and much more than that. As Al Tareb explains the uniqueness of the mitzvah of tzedakah. For that matter, in this very chapter, in Lamed Zayin, Al Tareb is going to explain as well. Tzedakah has a certain kayach that elevates so much more even any other mitzvah, because the whole person is involved much more than any other mitzvah. That's why I see tzedakah, people are ready to do a lot of mitzvahs. Tzedakah, it's a different type of effort. It's a new window, has to open up with it to them, because it's elevating their whole self, because a person puts all his effort in his livelihood, and when he gives that, he's pretty much giving part of himself and his whole energy. So it elevates a lot. That's why it says Mashiach is going to come and he's only going to elevate tzedakah, because that elevates so much more than a particular mitzvah. But we're going to explain it at the time. But here the Alter Rebbe is saying that the tzedakah, how great it is, and how much elevation it brings to the, and again how much windows it opens up to the Ein Sof. When a person gets tzedakah, with tzedakah cannot be gezel, it cannot be stolen money, because again, Torah says that the stolen money is connected to Shalosh Klipas Atmeis. So Kayetza Bahen, and anything similar. But again, back to back to, as Al Tareb again explains this, which we just explained, this Ha'ara, as you'll see it if you follow the text, you'll see we're going to put that Hagoy in also, which basically explains this, what's behind why, as we just explained, why tzedakah, which is not Gezel, why the esrog, which is not Arla, and so on and so forth. Back to get from the positive, when it is not Arla, when it is a regular esrog, or when it is a regular piece of parchment, and which is Tehim Mutarim Bificha, which has the ability to be elevated because it's coming from Shalosh Klipas Nega, not Shalosh Klipas Atmeis. So now that you're Mekayim, you fulfill the mitzvahs of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, or it's saying in HaKadosh Baruch Hu's desire, the Chai is the energy which was till now receiving, or this energy of klipas nega, this neutral energy, which in one hand it is klipas, it is impurity, but it doesn't have the intensity of the impurity, hence it can be elevated. And that is what is happening at this time when you do a mitzvah. So the energy exists within that item is elevated, ascends, and is completely nullified, and more so it becomes consumed into the Ein Sof Baruch Hu, into the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hamalubish Bahem, this is HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Ratzon. Again, the Ratzon of the mitzvah, which is the essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is the infinity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu is for himself, by himself, the Anechi Hashem Elikecho, which invested in them right now, in that esrig, or in that parchment, despite it is a physical item, but right at that moment, because that is which Kodesh Baruch Hu said that you should fulfill the mitzvah with. So irrelevant the fact that it's a physical item until this moment is receiving its energy from Klippus Nega, but the energy is elevated and consumed into the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Ratzon, which the Ratzon is the mitzvah. Maybe mezuzah, tefillin, sefer Torah, the esrog, or tzedakah, the examples that he gave, hamalubish bahem, which is invested right now in that physical item. Because there is nothing which would conceal HaKadosh Baruch Hu's inwardness, which is his face, literally translated, to conceal his great light. Blessed be He. The light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, blessed be He. Because when you're dealing, again we explained last week, when you're dealing with Pnimiyus HaRatzon, there's no Hester Panim. In Chitzenius HaRatzon there could be a Hester Panim, which means in the external dimension of HaKadosh Baruch Hu there, because it is external, so it's shaykh there that there could be a Hester Panim, again a concealment over this light, or this extension, or this expression of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as opposed to, again, we explained this difference, why the Chitzenius is over the Pnimius, but again, without elaborating on this again, but in the Pnimius, in the inwardness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, there's no Hester Panim, there's no Shaykh B'chlal, the notion of concealment over the Pnimius of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and the Pnimius of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is that Ratzon, is that mitzvah. That is the Anechi. Anechi meaning the core essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and there is no hell of a hest, there's no concealment over that, and that is investing in that mitzvah, in that physical parchment, in the tzedakah, in the esrig. Because the chayis of the esrig is right now consumed into the Ein Sof, because the Ein Sof is the mitzvah, is the mitzvah mitzvah, is the commander, the Anechi Hashem Elikecha, which is the commander of that mitzvah, and more so the mitzvah itself is an expression of the Anechi Hashem Elikecha. Which means the core of the way the Eibishter is transcendent of all, meaning so the Ein Sof K'Meshahu, the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the way he is, which is again the Anechi Hashem Elikecha. And he goes on, he says, "V'chin kech nefesh ha'achu yichun yisam ha'mishmei vari gufa adam, hay mekayim ha'mitzvah mislavish gam kim b'asiyazu, v'oil mehaklipa v'nichlu b'kedushas ha'mitzvah, shu ritzein yizbaruch hu batal be'ein sof baruch hu v'mubein sof baruch hu." And what that Rebbe is saying is not only the mitzvah itself, it's also the person, the physicality of the person which is invested in the mitzvah. I'm not doing the mitzvah with kind of my spiritual, my neshama, the way it's transcended, divested of body. I'm doing the mitzvah with my guf, the gufa adam, with my body. Where's my body receiving its energy from? It's receiving its energy also from Klippus Nega. Because my body is part of, is a davar gashmi from Elam Hazeh Gashmi, from this very physical world, which in the overall, as long as the Tatus doesn't put a stamp no on it, it's receiving its energy from Klippus Nega, from this neutral Klippus. Similarly, the body of man. Before I do a mitzvah with a particular limb, the body of man is also receiving its energy from Klippus Nega. And therefore, when I do the mitzvah, I'm investing part of the energy of my body to write that pair of tefillin, to put the tefillin on, and to shake the esrog, and to give the tzedakah, namely tzedakah, as we just said, my whole chayis is there. So what's happening also, not only the mitzvah, the piece of parchment, the physicality of the parchment, or this physical parchment, or the physical esrog, or the physical tzedakah is being transformed, completely transmuted into this new reality of Ein Sof Baruch Hu, or the connection of the Anechi, the Ein Sof, with that davar gashmi. But the Ein Sof is connecting also with myself as a davar gashmi as well. the physicality of my, the gashmis of myself as a human being, which as well is receiving till the time that I do a mitzvah, is also receiving its energy from klipas nega. But right now, when I'm involved in the mitzvah, it's completely transformed. And when we say that it's the gashmis of the person starting from the nefesh bahamis and nefesh chayunis, the animal soul, which we said this is the life force and energy, which gives the physical human being, like anything else physical, its chayus, its energy. And at the moment, the energy is geared to and is invested in doing the mitzvah, so the energy itself, which till this very second is receiving from klipas nega, is also being consumed into the Ein Sof, into the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. My nefesh bahamis, hence my nefesh bahamis, my nefesh chayunis, my animal soul, this which gives me life, nefesh habasar bedamhi, this literal, this nefesh, again, not the neshama, the godly neshama. The godly neshama is always part of Elokus. It's a chelik of the kamimal. It's a part of a God. But my nefesh, the life and energy which is vitalizing my body, which is, again, this is the animal soul, as we explained, the animal soul, this is the nefesh chayunis, which Al Rebbe explained in the 6th chapter. It also receives its energy from klipas nega, from this neutral klipa. When to the time I take my energy, which is again the life, the soul energy, which is invested in my body, which is giving it light, and I'm taking the energy of my body, hence the energy of the nefesh chayunis abahamis, and I'm taking it and investing in the mitzvah, so that itself is being transformed as well into the Ein Sof, into the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So he says, the nefesh chayunis abahamis, which exists within the limbs of the body of man, which is fulfilling the mitzvah at the time, is invested right now. This energy is invested in this action, again, to shake the esrig, or to put on the tefillin, to write the klaf, or to, again, do the mitzvah. Even the machshadas ha-mitzvah, writing the tefillin, eventually putting on the tefillin, and then writing the mezuzah, eventually putting up the mezuzah, fixing the mezuzah, or the esrig, or giving the tzedakah. So the energy right now invested in this action is Eila, ascends from klipa and is consumed into the sanctity of the mitzvah. And what is the sanctity of the mitzvah? That's the Tzeidig Baruch, the Hashem's Ratzin. And Hashem's Ratzin, that's the Anechi Hashem Lekech, that's the Ein Sof, that's the core essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So, at the time of the mitzvah, without Rebbe saying, at the time of the mitzvah, not only the physical item with which I'm doing the mitzvah is elevated to the Ein Sof, but all of myself invested in the mitzvah, in the body, and Al Rebbe is going to say the physical yad, but he starts over here with the nefesh chayunis, the energy which is giving life at that very moment, a life and energy force into my hand, to exist, to live, that is coming till this moment from klipas nega, but at the moment that it's invested in a mitzvah, it is transformed, it's elevated into the Ein Sof Baruch Hu, into the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is Ritzeni's Baruch. And here the Alter Rebbe is going to go on, and he's going to speak about Beth Hashem. We will continue. We're going to look forward to continue similarly that it works so when a person learns Torah and a person learns davens as well. Even though there's not so much, you don't see so much the asiyah, the investment in the physical, you don't see so much action. A person learns Torah, it's more his mind, it's more his machshav, it's more his thinking, it's more his investment of his seichel, of his intellectual faculties. But yet we know that even that is part of the Adam, is part of the Tziyur Adam, is part of the man, and hence the nefesh chayunis abahamis. In other words, the nefesh, which is mechayi, which is giving life, is also being elevated with my learning Torah. But more so, the Alter Rebbe is going to say that in learning Torah, there's also the action dimension as well, because the real way of learning Torah, based on the Gemara, the pedak, a person has to verbalize, utter the words of Torah when he learns. So the words, moving my lips, is also considered a maisa, and verbalizing, uttering words, and putting my energy into dibur, in putting something into speech, is an investment of the nefesh of the soul as well. Again, first the fact that there is some maisa, because moving my lips, as the Gemara says, is also considered maisa, but also speech, which is again part and parcel of the mitzvah of limud Torah, is an important investment of the nefesh chayunis. Hence, the nefesh chayunis abahamis, the animal soul, is being elevated through my learning Torah. And on the contrary, the more I put my energy into the learning, the more I'm elevating from my Guf my nefesh chayunis abahamis, and again, as the Gemara says in Shmurahi, as the Gemara is going to points out that that it's important that Azal tell us which means a person could learn Torah, everything, his whole energy could be involved in the learning Torah. And then similarly when it comes to tefillah, so there's much invested of the nefesh chayunis abahamis in the experience of learning Torah and tefillah. Hence through Torah and tefillah it's different a bit, or in the ultimately similar to the Maisa, where my action is elevated, means the Kayach of the Nefesh Bahamis, which invested in Maisa, in action, which is through doing the Maisa HaMitzvahs, giving tzedakah, doing the mishaking a lulav and esrig, or as he says over here, putting on tefillin, or writing the parchment, the tefillin, the Sefer Torah, the mezuzah. Similarly, when it comes to tefillah as in Torah, even though on the surface it's a bit different, but again, you find a full investment of the animal soul in that experience. Hence, everything is elevated. It's all elevated when a person learns Torah and davens. Have a wonderful evening.